Hi guys, and welcome back to World of Tanks, and I'm going to be looking at the Defender Object 252U, which is a bit of a mouthful, so yeah, just the Defender. Anyway, it's Tier 8 Russian Heavy, and is the other half of the two sort of Team Captains bundle, I think they've dubbed it, for the Tank Bowl. And yeah, again, it's quite nice. It's different from the I mean, obviously it's different from the Patriot, but with respect to the gun, because this is sort of the other end of the scale. Rather than being a high rate of fire sort of lower alpha, this is a lower rate of fire high alpha. In fact, I think it is the joint highest. I might be wrong, I did check through them all and I don't think I could see any, but it seems to be the joint highest alpha damage on a tier 8 heavy tank, at least. Obviously there is you know, the IC 152, which has 750 alpha damage, but this is the joint highest for a tier 8 heavy tank at 440 average damage per shot. And the only other one that I could find with that was the VK 101P, which is obviously one of the precursors to the mouse. So unlike the Patriot, this one has had a few nerfs before coming over to console, because I think basically the general consensus was that it was a bit overpowered on PC, but it's still a very tough tank. However, the gun handling has taken a bit of a knock, but I'll talk about that shortly. I'm not going to go too much on about the price, because I did in the other review, in the Patriot review, but I will just have a quick mention of it because this is a different review. So again, if you get the bundle, it brings the price down to 10,750 each, which, like I said in the other video, is closer to what I think the sort of upper end of tier 8 should be. But on its own, it's still 14,800 and is coming in a couple of cheaper bundles, but you're probably still going to be paying, if I remember rightly, around 14,000 for the cheapest bundle as well. So very pricey on its own. Anyway, back to the Defender, and as you can see, the hull shape is a bit unusual. It's like a cross between, well, it is almost exactly a cross between the IS-6 and the front end of the IS-3. However, if you notice on the IS-3, the pike nose is a lot lower down and the lower glacis is smaller. However, if you look at pictures of real life IS-3s, the front is actually closer to what this is, to the actual IS-3 that we have in game. And obviously the turret looks very, very similar to the IS-6, but it's a lot thicker turret front as well. Weak spots on this, frontally, not really many. The commander's hatches, if you can get them, but they are very small. But if you can get up close to one of these things, you can probably shoot down into the commander's hatch, and possibly into the top of the turret, depending on the sort of angle and how tall you are. If you're in a lower machine, then you're going to struggle a bit, I'd say, frontally, and you want to try and get it. Well, in my Patriot video, I managed to track one of these things and keep hitting it through the tracks, and got it that way. You do have a small amount of spaced armor on the side, but we'll go into that one shortly. I will try and cover as many of the changes as well that I found from the PC version. I know not everybody's going to be interested in that, but you know, I know some of you are. So let's get on to it. We get a 700 horsepower engine. It's a 122mm BL13 gun with a rate of fire of 3.87. It's 4 rounds a minute on PC. So that has been nerfed slightly. Penetration's 225, which is the same as an IS-3, and as I mentioned in the Patriot video, same as, you know, it's pretty much sort of on par with a lot of your tier 8 heavies. 225 penetration, Tiger 2, IS-3, etc. With a massive 440 alpha damage, or average damage, 265 on your premium with again 440, 68 and 530 on your HE. Aiming time, very, very poor, 3.4 seconds. It's very sort of atypical of Russian guns. That has been nerfed slightly. It's 3.2 on the PC. Accuracy is again quite a poor 0.47, and again that has been nerfed from the PC. On the PC it's 0.44. And I think that is roughly the only differences from... Oh no, there is one more, sorry. Hull traverse. 28 degrees of hull traverse, and on the PC it's 30. Turret traverse is 24 degrees. Again, kind of in line with the IS-3, I want to say. Not great, but not terrible. And a 350 meter view range, which is a bit on the low side, to be honest. That is a bit lower. I do want to check the IS-3 though while I'm here now. 1326. So yeah, it's not far off, and it's the same view range as well. So yeah, same awful aiming time, but the IS-3 does have a much more accurate gun. Now, it plays up to tier 10, which I think I forgot to mention on the Patriot. That one does as well, and I do kind of like it. It's very tough frontally. It is very tough frontally, but the gun handling, like I said, has taken a hit, and it's one of those sort of cases where when it behaves, it's kind of glorious. When it doesn't behave, it is horrific, and you just, I don't know, you just want to pound the thing into the ground with something. But let's get on to the supplies and what have you. You don't have a massive ammo count on this, which again is kind of typical of these with the big caliber guns. Obviously, bigger shells take up more space. But it's 1,025 for your standard armor piercing, 4,800 for your APCR, and 608 for your HE. And again, I've just gone for the standard consumables, so as not to sort of decrease the chances of crew getting injured any more than the skills already have. Equipment-wise, I've gone for a vertical stabilizer, a gun rammer. And you see, this is where, you know, there's a bit of a choice. I've gone for vents personally, just to try and improve sort of everything overall slightly on the tank. There is an argument you could drop the vents and go for a gun lane drive and the vertical stabilizer, because the aim time is so poor. Or you could even, you know, you could go for the vertical stabilizer, gun lane drive, and coated optics to try and improve your view range, because that's so poor. So it kind of depends on how you want to play the tank. Personally, I went for vents, and I feel that this one you do have to try and get closer. At a range, you will hit a few shots, and like I say, sometimes it behaves. It's just weird with Russian guns. But generally, you seem to do a bit better off sort of closer up in, you know, what we call knife fighting range. I actually went nose to nose with an IS-7. I'll show that little clip, and it just couldn't seem to pen my my turret, and only actually penned me when it backed off a bit and got shots in my hull. One of the other differences, however, is the lower glacis on this. On the PC, I believe, is 140mm thick, whereas on console it has been nerfed down to 130mm thick, the same as the upper glacis, but it's still very well angled, still bounces a hell of a lot of shots. And you know, I've bounced off the lower glacis of one of these with this as well, and it seems, I'm not saying it does, it seems to more or less bounce anything 90mm or below off the front. With sort of, you know, yeah, quite a lot of regularity, or quite reliably, I think is the word I was looking for. But yeah, it is very tough frontally. Can be tough from the sides as well. When it's top tier, it can be an absolute beast, but it can kind of hold its own in the higher tier matches as well. Now, let's have a look. Stat-wise, well, your bonus is 50% silver and 10% XP on this, so it is slightly lower than on the Patriot, which is a bit of a surprise, to be honest. But let's get into it. Right, 700 horsepower engine, which gives you a power to weight ratio of 13.59, which again, probably something I should have checked, is about similar. Oh no, slightly less than on the IS-3, but it doesn't seem overly slow for it. You know, to be honest, it kind of felt the same as the IS-3, but I've not driven one for a while. I've only been in the Fatherland, and that one is a bit slower anyway, so I think my sort of perception's a bit skewed with that one because of not driving the IS-3 for a while. But anyway, 13.59, 35 in forwards, 14 in reverse, and a 15% chance of fire. Quite a large engine though, or seemingly it takes up most of the back of the tank. Again, from the rear of the turret ring to where the upper rear glacis slopes down, and you've got 1500 hit points as well. Now, elevation is 20 degrees, which is fine. Again, quite workable. Depression, though, is only 6 degrees, and again, kind of typically Russian, and understandable. It's got a very flat turret, and for every degree the barrel goes, you know, down on the outside, the breech has to go up on the inside. So if it's quite a low, flat turret, there's not as much room for the breech to actually move up. Oh, concealment, by the way, 0.14 and 0.08, which I think is slightly better than the Patriot, probably because it's a bit of a lower machine. Right, terrain resistances, 1.2, 1.5 and 2.3, slightly worse than the IS-3, and I'm comparing it to the IS-3 because it is kind of similar to that. The IS-6, even though it's the same body shape, it's got a very different gun and gets preferential matchmaking as well. This doesn't, so I'd say this compares more towards the IS-3 than anything else, but I feel that the front of this is tougher and seems to bounce more shots than the IS-3 one. Again, could be wrong. You know, these are my impressions of it from the games that I've played in it, and I've played more in this than the Patriot. Turret on top. Radio is in the left-hand side of the turret, just under the cupola. You've got your ammunition blocks at the back of the turret, so if you can get behind one of these, try and put them through the rear of the turret. Or you've got them at the sides, just above the spaced armour. The spaced armour is very thin, and it's the flat part of the sides, the angled parts, just seem to be standard armour. And you've also got the ammo blocks moving downwards at the front of the turret to just below the level of the tracks as well. Crew members, you've got the driver down in the middle of the hull at the front, commander under the cupola on the left of the turret, and then the gunner and the loader sat in the turret with him. Armour wise, right, yes, like I say, quite nicely armoured, this one. So hull armour, 130 on the front, 100 on the sides, and 90 on the rear when I can control my pad. The turret armour is 250 on the front, which is very nice, and it's quite rounded, and it's got quite a nice few angles on there as well, and it's a very bouncy turret front. 150 on the sides and 100 on the rear, so even some of the sort of lower tier stuff may struggle to pen the rear of this, you know, the rear of the turret, because it has got a bit of an upwards angle and a sideways angle as well, so unless you can get it where it's turned a bit and hits it a bit more flat on, like I say, even some of the lower tier stuff may struggle to pen the rear of the turret, so you're best off just trying to hit the rear of the tank itself. But again, never tells the whole story, so let's look at the actual brackets and see if we can get a bit more of an indication of it. So 1 to 20 are your tracks. Don't forget they do act as spaced armour as well, and just the whole floor, I think, in that one. 21 to 30, you've got your small amount of spaced armour at the sides of the hull there, as you can see, and also the engine deck. And I was going to say the commander's hatches, but no, just the engine deck, the top deck. 31 to 50. Well, that's just behind, as you can see there, the downslope on the underside of the tank sides above the tracks. You've got your spaced armour, and then you've got the downslope there, which is 31 to 50. Very, very well angled though. And I think, again, oh no, it's just a bit at the back of the underside of the turret as well. 51 to 70. You've got your top of the turret, which again, if you're tall enough and you can get right up next to one of these things, you might be able to shoot down into the top of the turret, or go straight in for the commander's hatches, which are probably a better weak spot, maybe. But I've not been in anything sort of tall enough up against one of these things at that sort of range yet. You've also got the driver's viewport area, which is, I don't know if that would be a hatch that'd open on it, but that also falls into that category. So again, if you can get close enough and you're tall enough and you've got the gun depression, you might be able to put it straight through there. 71 to 90 is the back of the tank, upper and lower glacis, and a small patch just above and below the gun mantle as well, as you can see there. 91 to 120, you've got the sides of the actual sides of the hull, sorry, behind the tracks. And I'd say the rear, it's not quite the whole sort of side of the tank, as you can see there, but it's sort of the rear angle, kind of, I don't know what to call that bit there, the angle bit on the back, and the back of the turret fall into that category as well. 121 to 160, well I said it's 130 for the frontal armour, that's what it shows as, and like I said, I was sort of talking to Carbide from Wargaming, and I forgot to turn my phone off, and he said that the lower glacis is 130mm, as is the top as well, so it is very, very tough from the front, very well angled, and like I say, can bounce quite a few shots, and it just seems to be a straight 130 all the way back, joining up with those hull sides there, and I don't know whether you call that the shoulders at the front, but it's those angle bits as well, which the IS-3 doesn't have, but the IS-6 does. And like I said before, very, very much a mix of IS-3 and IS-6 hull shapes. The commander's hatches, they also fall into that category, which is probably one of the few weak spots on the front of one of these things, and various patches on and around the turret, the upper sides as well, fall into that one. 161 to 190, just coming forwards on the turret, and it is a bit of a patchwork of different armour thicknesses on the front of the turret, but there are some good angles there, and sort of it's quite rounded off as well, so it does reliably bounce shots on the front of the turret. 191 to 230, again, lower turret sides, a bit of the turret ring, and just coming a bit thicker and creeping onto the gun mantle as well. And then your 231 plus, which is your 250, which is the gun mantle, Just behind the driver's viewport, you can see that flatter part. That is a lot thicker as well, so that's not a weak spot. Although it is flatter, so it might be easier to pen. But if you're close enough to probably hit that, you want to try and go for the commander's hatches, I'd say. Or try and track them and get around these. And again, you can just see on the front of the turret just those small strips creeping in, and the front of the turret ring as well. So all in all, very, very tough tank frontally. Very few, if any, weak spots frontally, apart from the hatches. Maybe the driver's hatch as well, if you can get close enough. And if you've got enough penetration, though, you know, your tier 10s and a lot of your tier 9s, they can go through that lower glacis. But if you get too close, obviously it greases the angle. And if you get close enough and you're tall enough, just go for the commanders, for the hatches on the top, or the actual top of the turret itself. It does not have that really thin plate like the IS-3 does, though. So do beware of that. You know, it does show on the model there is that plate there, but it's no thinner than the rest of the top of the turret. Other than that, like I say, if you're not tall enough or you can't get close enough, just try and get around the sides of it. Try and track it if you can. Its turret doesn't move overly quickly when it's tracked. It's not too bad when you're not tracked, because you can move the hull and the turret itself. But yeah, I do kind of like this, but I've had great games, you know, I've had some really nice games in it, but I've also had some incredibly frustrating games in it, when the gun just isn't behaving itself and doesn't miss, and sorry, doesn't hit. It just doesn't seem to hit anything sometimes in matches. But again, it's kind of typical of Russian tanks at times, where fully aimed shots can just miss or just go slightly wide and end up bouncing because they hit the wrong angle. But like I said before, when it does behave, it is very, very nice, and top tier, it is a bit of a beast, I must admit. But the dispersion values after firing and moving do seem to be pretty poor at the minute, and the gun handling, as I said before, does seem to have taken quite a large hit. Off-road driving, I would recommend in this. Obviously, 6th sense, repairs, maybe track mechanic as well. You will get tracked a lot, so have repairs and track mechanic. Off-road driving and maybe clutch braking. A sort of a way to go with a sort of starter crew, but I'm sure a lot of you'll probably have crews that you'll just, you know, already established, and you'll stick in this to have a run around and earn some money in. Now, I don't think I've forgotten anything, but I do kind of feel like I have forgotten something, but I'm sure if I have, I'll remember and mention it in the replay. So let's get into those and see how it actually handles. Here we are for the first part, and very short, and this is what I was on about with the IS-7, and yeah, I've taken a bit of a beating at this point from that and the Conway that's up there. Now, don't take this as a given, but you know, the Conway bounced. It was a you know, a bit of an extreme angle, but the IS-7 bounced off the turret and then didn't seem to want to fire again because he couldn't seem to find anywhere to pen me. However, I couldn't pen him either until, well, yeah, until I made the mistake of letting him back off. I tried to go for his lower glacis, and it gave him room to shoot him a hole. But I just really showed that, you know, put that on to show how tough the turret front can be when you're really up in sort of close range, nose to nose with something. Now here we are for the first of the replays, tier 8 match, and fairly heavily tier 8 as well, here on Pilsen. And again, I did get in a few sort of tier 9 and 10 matches yesterday in this, but I've been, well, as I've mentioned before, I'm having problems with my capture card at the minute. It keeps going off as though there's nothing connected, as though it's not connected to the actual laptop, or it will go off as though there's no signal going in from the HDMI, and just keeps crashing randomly. So I had a lot of crashes yesterday. It took me nearly all day to get the footage that I needed because it just kept crashing. And the other tier 9 matches, or tier 10, where it didn't crash, I got hammered by Arty fairly early on. So yeah, it was just, I don't know, it's a bit of a struggle, and like I said before, I really got to get myself a new capture card soon, so hopefully that'll be by the end of the month. But anyway, back to this. It's kind of, you see, these are, they're alright damage matches. I think they're both over 3,000 damage, but they're just sort of average-ish matches, but they do kind of show it off a little bit. Now, there's an enemy defender, and he missed, and as he was backing off, he gave me a bit of the angle of the front of his tank, flattened out a bit because of the way he was backing off, and I managed to pen him. And I'm just trying to not give him the same sort of angle, but he's pulling backwards and giving me the side of his tank, and I managed to get 2 in. And I think both of these matches are also examples of when this gun behaves. So again, don't take this accuracy, you know, as sort of gospel. I was very, very surprised that I hit all 3 of those shots. A couple of the matches before this, I was just having none of that. Fully aimed shots were missing, or, you know, going slightly awry. And again, you can see how slow the aim is on this. But this is something similar to the Patriot as well, which you know, which I said with that. If you don't like American heavy tanks, or, you know, maybe even American mediums, but if you don't like American heavies, you're probably not going to like the Patriot. Same with this. If you're not a fan of Russian heavy tanks, you're probably not going to like this. This is it is kind of atypical of sort of Russian heavies, and again, apologies for the dodgy quality there and the glitches. That is down to the capture card. You see what I mean? You know, it was doing stuff like that and crashing. But anyway, back to this. It is kind of typical of Russian heavies, trying to get the flat part of the turret there, but just couldn't seem to hit it, and taking a few hits from the side there. Goranich has come around. Really need to try and deal with those and hope those TDs don't come round on us. In fact, there's an IS-6. Now I've turned to face him. He was just, I think he just bounced. Oh no, knocked my tracks off, sorry. Yeah, that's what I mean about track mechanic and repairs. You will get tracked a lot in this. But yeah, it is fairly typical of Russian heavy tanks. You know, very tough frontally, high alpha damage, low rate of fire, inaccurate. You know, slow aim time. But this just seems that little bit tougher frontally than an IS-3. IS-3 turrets are still very tough, but they do have that weak spot on top. This one doesn't seem to, and you get this up close, and it can be very, very tough. Couldn't quite get through the front of that T-28 prototype, though. I was trying to go for the machine gun port then, but somebody else took him out, and I managed to just take out that Goranich in the end. And now there's not really many left. There's the Motherland up there, which I could take a pot shot at, but I probably wouldn't hit. As you can see, I mean, it seems to, you know, manoeuvre about and pick up speed and sort of maintain it fairly well. It's definitely not slow or sluggish, I wouldn't have said it. You know, it is, but it does feel very similar to the IS-3, albeit this does have a slightly worse power to weight ratio, but definitely not something I'd call slow or particularly sluggish, but just mobility wise, again, kind of typical of Russian heavies. So it's, I don't know with this one, it's kind of one of those tanks where you sort of know what you're going to be getting. You know the IS-3's armour can be kind of trolly, and not the IS-3, the IS-6's armour can be kind of trolly, and the sides and rear of this are very much IS-6. The front's got that pike nose with a very, very good angling on it. I'd say probably better angling than the IS-3, and the IS-3 can be a fairly tough tank frontally, but this is definitely tougher frontally, I would have said, than an IS-3. And ironically, I actually got a sniper medal in that match with a horrifically inaccurate gun, and I managed to get a sniper medal, so yeah, it's kind of ironic, but just over 3,000 done, a couple of thousand blocked. And top of the table, which is, like I say, in tier 8, it can be quite a beast. But yeah, it's, you sort of know what you're getting you know what you're getting. If you see what I mean. When I can talk, I just don't seem to be able to talk now. You're getting that, you know, that, like I say, inaccurate, inaccurate, but sometimes weirdly accurate. Long game time, high alpha Russian gun, and it is nice to have. You'd see, I don't mind. Sometimes I'd rather have a high alpha gun, because you know that if you hit and pen, you're going to give them a good, you know, a good kick in with it, really. And sometimes they might only have 400 health left. You know, you can hit them for about 440, bang. Whereas if you've got a lower alpha gun, you're going to have to hit them a couple of times. That could mean your death. But then again, sometimes the lower alpha, higher DPM are better, because you're not waiting for the reload, and again, that can cause you death sometimes. It just depends on what you're up against, and depends on what you prefer. With me, it depends on what sort of mood I'm in, whether I want something with a big heavy hit, or whether I want something that's fast firing. And it's kind of nice with this bundle, because you get one of each. You know, it's sort of, you get the sort of lower alpha, higher DPM, a bit more mobile heavy, and then you get this very tough, high alpha, low DPM, sort of a bit less mobile heavy. So you do sort of have both ends of it. And personally, I think these are both good tanks in their own way. I don't think the nerf to the frontal armour of this has particularly affected it, but then again, you know, I don't have a point of reference. I've never played it on the PC, but it, you know, from playing in it, it doesn't seem to have had any adverse effect. My only gripe with this one is the gun handling is quite poor, and obviously you do have that fairly lengthy reload. In fact, it actually ends up with slightly less DPM, and this is stock. You know, this is just going off the stock figures, not with any equipment or skills or anything. But it does seem to have, well, it does have slightly lower DPM than an IS-3, and an IS-3 doesn't have great DPM because, again, it's, you know, a high alpha gun. But I think it comes out at around 1700 or just over a minute, whereas I think an IS-3, and again, this is stock, not stock, but, you know, fully upgraded, no equipment or anything, comes out at around 1758, if I remember rightly. So there's not a great deal in it, but it has got slightly less. But when you do hit something with this, yeah, they notice. You know, it's one of those that it's like, Christ, what the hell just hit me? Especially at tier 8 when you sort of lose a third of your health in one go. And as for the lower tier ones, sometimes it's sort of, it is just funny. You know, you get a little twinge of guilt, but then it soon goes away. You just start laughing maniacally. But yeah, top tier stuff does kind of have to try hard to damage you or to try and get around you. When you're not top tier, you do have to obviously play it more cautiously. Most of the stuff at tier, well, I'd say all of the stuff at tier 10, etc., but probably a lot at tier 9, really won't have much trouble getting through your frontal hull armour. But if you can stay out the way, if you can manage to get a few shots at a distance and then maybe close the distance when it's safe to, get really up in someone's face, it may work very well as a brawler. Like I say, you know, you saw that IS-7, he did bounce off the front of my turret. But you've got to pick your things. You don't want to go up anything against anything too tall with good gun depression, because they'll probably just shoot down into the top of your turret. And again, this is another one where the gun just seems to be behaving. I'm hitting shots that I really didn't expect to hit, you know, that aren't fully aimed. Whereas in other matches I've been in it, I've missed fully aimed shots. They've just, like I said before, either just gone wide or gone slightly off and hit a, you know, hit at a bit of an angle and bounced. So it's equal parts fun and frustration, as with a lot of the Russian heavies. Same with the KV2. I love the KV2, but that is equal parts fun and frustration, because sometimes the gun just does not behave, and then other times it really does. Like, well, this Tiger 131, I go for his commander's hatch and hit it, and there really wasn't much to shoot at there. And again, I didn't expect to hit that. Something I did forget about in the garage, by the way, even though this looks pretty plain, apart from the, you know, the few decals on it, you cannot put anything on it. You can't put camo on it, you can't put inscriptions, and you can't put emblems. Again, the only thing you can put on it is flags, if I remember. So, a bit odd with that one. You know, with the look of it, it really did look as though I'd be able to actually put some camouflage on it, but no. No, you can't, unfortunately. So it just is what it is. Now I'm going to go after this bat chat. He tried to get around me. I'm not worried about him penning, to be honest. Even from the side and the rear, he's going to struggle. Even though the rear is not too thick, it is very well angled, and if I keep moving, it shouldn't be too bad. And that was very, very lucky. Again, I thought I'd missed him, but I clipped him and set him on fire. And I'm going to go over here. I'm going to try and go for the ram. Oh, he did pen me. He penned my lower glacis there, I think it was. Probably as I was just coming up over there, because obviously he was below me, so it would have reduced the angle. Either that or it went through the underside of the tank, the belly of the tank. But I think that was the only damage I actually take the entire match. Now that TD's done, and there is just a heavy tank over at the other end of the field, but we've got guys going into cap, and in fact there's another one going into cap. No, we've got 3 in there already. Any more is pointless. Only 3, up to 3 make a difference, should I say. So I'm going to go back, try and save that TD, see if I can get a bit more damage done, and it's an Oni. Now this range, that's going to be a dodgy shot with this, definitely. It's not a sniper, regardless of how many sniper medals it gives you. Yeah, that went slightly wide, hit the side of the turret and bounced, and yeah, we've capped out, so I'm not going to get across there to do any more damage. And again, I really wish I could have brought you a higher tier match, but I'm just having so many problems with my capture card at the minute. I was just glad to get any footage that was usable because of how that was going on. But not a bad match again. Again, good money earning potential, just over 3,200 damage, 1,100 assisted, and 1,260 blocked, and another sniper medal. So there you go, the Defender 252U. And again, like I said before, if you're not into your Russian heavies, you're probably not going to like that. Gun handling has suffered a bit, but it's still a very tough and can be a very, very fun tank as well. So if you do like your Russian heavies, it might be one that you want to have a look at. Anyway, there you go. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you found it informative. I'll be back tomorrow with another video for you. So until then, take care out there, and I'll catch you next time. See you later.